Welcome back to... This is going to be a long season. I don't know about you, but whenever we drop points to cope, I get all philosophical. And I know it's a defence. I start doing the whole, well, football doesn't even matter anyway. It's just a game. You know, maybe it's God. Maybe God wants to challenge me. Just me. The main character. I also don't usually consume any Arsenal content, so credit to you for sticking around. Drop a like and sub, go on. I also always fantasize about parallel universes after drop points for some reason. But while the other ones are definitely copium, this one, there's something in it. Because there's a very close timeline to our own after Fulham, where we're sat here, 4 wins in a row, 4 points behind Liverpool, saying that's what title winners do. They win it late. But instead, we're on this timeline, scratching our heads, wondering if we're out the title race. And those two timelines are separated by this. Half a foot. That's the agony and the ecstasy of the game we love, sure. But how do you draw conclusions, analyse, narrativise anything when that's what you're working with? It's tough, but we can try. And I think we start by zooming out. I suspect a lot of you feel the same way as me. There's so much right at Arsenal, but it feels like this season, things just aren't going our way. Any weakness or point of improvement just gets killed every single time. Injuries to our left-hand side, concede down that side. Salah and Jimenez, boom. Nearly get out of the Etihad alive despite a rubbish red, boom, last-minute equaliser. Shiny new signing, boom, first training session, out. No matter where you sit on the team, on the manager or whatever, no one surely could argue things are going Arsenal's way. When was the last time, for example, we got a lucky win? And with that frustration, we can be tempted to rip up the whole thing. I feel that sometimes, and I get that, but if we're trying not to do wild swings based on Martinelli's metatarsal and Trossard's boot, I think we need to do something important, but actually very, very hard. We need to separate what is long-term wrong, the long-term issues that are holding us back consistently, that we can control as a team, away from things that are incidental, the ups and downs of football that we can't control, and try not to get confused along the way at things that are actually related to the fundamental issues, but not fundamental themselves. Simple. Because while Arsenal have fundamental systemic issues that we will come to, they are a brilliant team. No one wants to hear that when we drop points, but it's a fact. Let's look at the facts, because they're harder to argue, although I'm sure some of you will try. Look at the numbers against Fulham. 0.1 XG for them. All the possession for us, all the field tilt, 7 to 47 deep touches. They touched the ball in our central zone once. 2 shots on target, 1 goal for them. PPDA 80.3. And Fulham aren't bums, especially not at home. They're brilliantly coached. But numbers-wise, the thing we can objectively measure, we rinse them. If you don't agree, fine. But if you were going to take a training session tomorrow and you wrote down all the things that you could coach at Arsenal, if you wrote a list, probably almost everything on it, we're pretty good at. We know our set-piece numbers, we see our counter-press, we see how rarely teams high-press us and win it high. How often do you see us give the ball away in build-up these days? Even our throw-ins give us advantages. In terms of open play chances, it's one to watch, but I don't think we're fundamentally broken over wider samples with Ødegaard. I'm watching it, but I think we are okay long-term. Expected goals against 11v11, we're top. Expected goal difference, 11v11, we're marginally behind Liverpool. Still, even this season, even on the run they're on. But the way I see it is there are 2 fundamental coaching, team, system issues. Yes, Mikel Arteta issues, even though I never criticise him. These flaws shouldn't be as problematic as they have been. They shouldn't be causing us the problems they are. But they do. And they've been a problem now for a long time. They are, number 1, Arsenal can't transition well enough. Or maybe they just don't, but can't feels more apt at this point. And 2, Arsenal's left-hand side doesn't make sense. Everything else, I think, is stuff you can't really control, like fixtures and injuries and stuff, or is a downstream problem of those 2 fundamental issues. For example, I think we had a balance issue against Fulham with the wrong-footed fullbacks on wrong sides, but I don't think that would have happened without the injuries. Some people think we have a problem with central access long-term. I think with Ødegaard's resurgence, you can see that's less of an issue. Some people worry about lack of ball carriers. I think Timber, Calafiori, Rice, we do have them. We just spend most of our time in the opposition box. Some people think we need an out-and-out striker, but I think it's related to the balance on the left-hand side. I really think it is these 2 at the core. I'd love to try that theory out and hear what you think. Let's first look at the transition problem, because there was too many moments yesterday when the game state called for a transition and we couldn't do it. When you're playing a team as compact as Fulham or Villa or Porto, you basically can't get central access when you're in the final third, as Mikel actually said. Look how compact Fulham are front to back here. If you're bemoaning accessing the middle against these types of teams, I mean, fair enough, but I'd focus on different ways in, I think. You can go over, through, or round teams, and this was an over and round game. The real problem is when over and round doesn't work, like it wasn't yesterday, your options are diminishing. You've got set pieces, tick, shots from distance, difficult against the block. You could go long from the back, but you don't have much opportunity when you're controlling the game in the final third. You could try carry through them, but teams are a bit too compact. So probably the only thing you have left is to, maybe even artificially, by stepping back, create space to drive into. And I think we literally don't have the ability via profiles and setup and so on to do that. Maybe we do have the capacity, but we're certainly not doing it. You can go back to those old Villa, Porto, whatever games, but take this situation yesterday. Fulham are opening out in the second half, and there's opportunity to run through them. You can see the distances much wider. Saliba wins the ball, and it comes to Jorginho. 6 Fulham players in front of the ball, so if we want it to be, we can very quickly create a 4v4, even a 5v4 in our favour. But instead, what happens is the ball slows, we look to play it to feet, our wingers drop in instead of stretching, and our striker maintains the line. We're back in the U shape in about 5 seconds. This situation. Ball with Iwobi, goes into midfield, great tackle from Rice, wins the ball. Here we go. Now, we could theoretically have a 4v4 or a 5v4 again. Instead, no, we slow, we compact, we work the ball wide, ball into the box, gets cut out. This one, Martinelli turns and goes. Okay, yes. Timber literally stands still. Jesus doesn't stretch the line, Saka doesn't make a run, no midfielders support the run, Martinelli runs into traffic. That's it, ball turned over. Could it be fatigue? Maybe. Is it the lack of profiles to do it? Almost certainly. But it's not necessarily just about signing pace in behind to do it. It's also a mentality thing, I think. We almost always default to slow control. It doesn't have to be a 90-yard, lung-busting run type of counter-attack. You can turn the ball over anywhere on the pitch. It's about your reaction and your setup to respond to those moments when they do happen. Look at the reaction of our players, and that tells you what we want to do. And I'm saying all this, but you know, you're not stupid. You see the team. How often do we score those Liverpool-type counter-attacking goals? It's not about getting Son v Burnley in the team. It's not about becoming Leicester circa 2016. It's about having that ability when the game calls for it. All you need is probably one pacey signing and a slight shift towards it, and you'd be fine. It's not a big shift, but I just don't see it in the team, and I think it's consistently hurting us. And that, beautifully, or not so beautifully, brings us on to our second fundamental issue. Probably no one would disagree that Trossard and Martinelli appear to be our main left-sided attacking options. But we have a problem. They are both unsuited to too many specific situations in our game model. And at this point, I am looking at Arteta. We are right-sided biased as a team, and increasingly so. I look at basically any of our pass maps, our attack locations, your eyes will tell you. And it's fine to have that. Many great teams have biases. It's happened before, it will happen again. But when you do have that, and you ask your left winger to be isolated and hugging the touchline, and you have a Raumdeuter, space creator type striker, you have to have a winger who can create separation and devastate with the out to in run. You have to, because you need output from him if he's going to be isolated. Unless you're playing with Florian Wirtz or Musiala in the left 8 or something, but I can't imagine Mikel ever doing that in his midfield, playing with 2 true 8-10s. And we just don't have that on the left from Trossard and Martinelli. Great players in their own right, but they're not suited. Look at Jadon Sancho's goal on Sunday. That is exactly what I mean. Martinelli is brilliant centrally at times. Although he's been in poor form in front of goal this season, we do have a bigger sample of him being good. But he just can't make that run inside consistently with enough quality and with enough separation to deliver enough output. If you want a reference, we need prime Sadio Mane, essentially. So good luck. Maybe Jorginho can lend us the cryo chamber. We can get through games, we can rely on set pieces, we can rely on Saka, we can shoot from distance, we can carry through teams when it's not Fulham and Porto and Villa and so on, but it will cause us problems until it's solved. And it feels like the final few percentages this season are killing us. Part of this could be finding our left winger earlier, sure, overload to isolate. Could we use the fullbacks differently? Yep, but we know how useful it is having that player inside. It's not as easy as it looks on TV. You can't have everyone everywhere. I think maybe putting Rice a bit deeper will help to get some switches over to that side, although he's better switching to the right. But we're papering over cracks if we want to fix that problem long term. Whether we make a left-sided signing or a striking signing will probably depend on what's available on the market, ultimately. It could be a role change, but if we can find that left-sided player, it can keep Havertz as is and probably make him look better, and you can keep our midfield and fullbacks balanced. To me, it's changing one player versus changing 3 players and the system. And because broadly, the system is really good, I prefer the former. And then I genuinely believe the other stuff we talk about on the channel is kind of downstream of that. If you have a left winger who can do that, you reduce the burden on that side and you probably don't get as many injuries to the fullbacks. If you have a more devastating left winger, I think Rice can drop back because you don't need to support so much. I bet we'd be less reliant on our set pieces overall because we'd have more output from that side. If we could transition, mid-blocks wouldn't be such a problem. If we could have added proper central or wide transition to the team this year or last year, where would we be? Could we have beaten Liverpool at the Emirates recently? Could we have nicked a goal against City at the Etihad, sitting deep? These 2 issues, in my view, lead to basically everything else, I think. We're set-piece FC, we're reliant on Saka, we haven't got a proper striker, whatever it is. That's my theory. Let me know what you think in the comments. Despite my philosophical copium, we are here on this timeline, even if we don't want to be. But all is not lost, genuinely. When we look at the points compared to the corresponding fixtures last year, we're not a million miles away, and we got a point more than last year at Craven Cottage. I maintain that we may look back in January on a brilliant December run, and I still think we'll be right in it till the end. But until we fix those 2 problems, they will be a weakness. And as I said earlier, it feels like this season, any weakness, because of the quality of the league, gets pounced on. Let's not forget, other teams have weaknesses too, and I think this league is going to come down to basically how well you can manage that. But I just pray we do something about our weaknesses sooner rather than later. January would be a nice place to start. If you like The Different Knock, you can support us on Patreon monthly, or you can buy us a coffee.